Epic Artists. This is Rachel at Epic Clay Studio, and I'm here to show you how to make our Coil Christmas tree project from our Epic at Home kits. So, you should have received from us a little hunk of clay and a paper bag that has a fork in it, paintbrush for later, a bunch of underglazes also for later, a popsicle stick, and some star templates. And then I suggest that you grab a couple of things before you start working. 2 bowls of water would be helpful, one for the clay and one for the underglaze. Some kind of newspaper or brown paper to put down while you're working. And then like a sponge or paper towels or something for some smoothing. And then as you get started, I'm going to show you how to make a coil because our entire Christmas tree is made out of coils, as you can see. So you kind of are just going to grab a hunk, and you don't want to like dig too deep and make weird like fingerprints in the clay, but so you just kind of grab it softly off of the clay and kind of start rolling a little bit of a tube in your hands. A thing I like to do with coils is start by kind of making them into a square all the way around, and then by hitting it against the table, so you can do that. And then out of that square, I start hitting the corners of the square into the table, so it's kind of a smoother circle already. And then when I'm rolling my coils, I always try to use my fingers and not really my hand, because your fingers are longer and they're a smaller surface, so it'll help the clay to roll into the smooth coil that you're looking for. Another thing I see a lot is people trying to roll coils, and they'll kind of just be doing this. And this will kind of roll a coil, but a more successful way is to just kind of keep pushing the clay in one direction. And if I spread my fingers out really wide as I'm rolling, it'll help me reach all of the different points of the clay so that I can roll a more consistent coil. And if you start feeling it kind of like flopping, like thunk, thunk, thunking as you're rolling, you can lift it up onto a little narrow end and kind of hit that back down flat so it's a little bit more round, and just keep going. Mine got a little bit thinner on this side, so now I'm just kind of rolling more on this side. And as you can see, you kind of need a big working space because you might end up rolling them really super long. If you end up rolling a bunch of short ones, that's also okay. Coils are harder than they look to roll out. Okay, so now that I'm kind of happy with how wide this coil is, I'll show you how to start your tree. So the beginning part of it is kind of just you deciding how wide you want your tree. If you do a wider base, you'll probably have more work to do, which is okay. But if you do a skinny base, you have to kind of worry about not making it too skinny so that you can make it as tall as you want. So you kind of have to judge how wide you want to make it. So I think I'm going to choose about here, and this is where your fork comes in. So anytime you join 2 pieces of clay together, you always have to scratch to attach because the clay needs something to grab onto when you're just putting it on itself. Otherwise it'll just fall off when it fires, and that's no fun. We don't want your trees to kind of fall apart. So I'm going to take my fork and kind of score on this part. And then this part's gonna start laying on top of it. So I'm gonna kind of fold it over so that I can reach the underside of it and score the top part too. And then I'm also gonna push the very, very end of it down so that it can start rolling up all the way so that there's not like a big gap. You can kind of see it on this one, how this little end smooths down into the other coil. And so that's what that's kind of for. I'll just squish that down. I have to score the squish part too. And then make sure when I start that the underside over here is nice and scratched up. And then I'm gonna take some water. I'm gonna put it on this end and on this end. And I'm gonna kind of just start attaching my coil all the way around. So your first coil probably won't get you super, super far, and that's okay, because as you keep building, you kind of start building it a little bit on the inside of each circle, and it's gonna build up into a triangle. And each time you roll a big long coil, it'll get higher and higher, and you'll have to, like, each circle is gonna get smaller. So you'll be able to get rid of more like space each time. So it might feel like it's taking a long time, but it'll go faster as you get to the top. Okay, so after I got done with that coil, I'm kind of smoothing out where my scratch to attach marks are. With the water, I'm using my finger. You could use your sponge if you wanted to, or your paper towel. I just want it to look really nice. So I'm trying to get all those little fork marks that are shown out of there. Okay, so then I'm gonna roll another coil. Grab a little hunk of clay. Same thing, kind of roll it into a tube. Doing my square, knocking off the corners, and rolling the coil. Sometimes I like to stand up because I feel like for some reason that gives me more control. So you can do whatever is comfortable for you. So again, my fingers are super, super spread out. I'm paying attention to if I hit any like thinner spots, because then I'll just not focus in that area and I'll get other areas worn down to be that skinny. And really going slow and steady is your best bet for this project. Coils take longer than you'd expect them to, and that is okay. Okay, so this coil is about the same width as this coil, so I'm ready to attach again. So I take my fork, and I'm also going to scratch the very, very end of the coil, as well as the top. Scratching, scratching, scratching to attach all the way around. I'm going to scratch the top of this one all the way down, and you're going to do a much better job than I am because I'm kind of rushing for the video. You're going to be super detailed and really scratch in so that your tree can stay together in the kiln. So I'm putting more water, then I'm going to attach the scratched end to the scratched end, and I'm going to wrap it around again. And then as I get to my last bit of scratched stuff, I'm going to scratch again, because every single layer needs to be scratched to attach. So I come over on the coil I'm even working on, and I start laying it down on top of each other. Okay, so I got some more layers, and I'll start smoothing out. Another thing you can do to help smooth and to help keep your tree together is, as you're working, I like to use the end of the fork and I kind of smear from the bottom to the top those layers together. And if that will help it to be kind of smooth on the inside, which will also help the coils stay together because it's more clay being attached together. So you can kind of see, like, smoothing it out a little bit. That helps it stay together in the kiln. And that's how you do it. You just keep making coils and keep building until you get it as tall as you want to. I have made half of a tree already. So I'm pulling it out just like those cooking shows that you see. And I'm gonna finish this one up for the rest of the video so I can show you how to make the star and all the little ornaments that you wanna maybe put on it. So I'm actually gonna cheat a little bit and use my coils that I've already rolled out to help build this one up. I might need to roll some more, but we will see. Okay, so I'm gonna scratch to attach. So I'm scratching the top, scratching the little end of my coil, using more water and water. And let's see, what's the best way to do this one? I'm gonna put it up here and roll it all the way around. Then I get to this part and I need to scratch the top again. Add more water. Twist it so that my scratched ends meet. Okay, more scratching, more water, more finding my scratched end, and just twist. All right, again, more scratching. There's a lot and lot of scratching to attaching in this project. And please pay special attention to it because we don't want your trees to just separate in the kiln. That'd be super sad. Okay, so as you can see, I'm almost there. I still want it to be taller, so I'm gonna use this guy. But now I'm gonna start blending the inside again, going from the top to the bottom. And I did this as I worked because it's easier to reach as you're going rather than like getting the whole thing built. Also, if you use the board to build your project on, you can do this fun thing where you turn it and it makes it easier. So you can reach all the little ends while you're coiling and spinning it. Just makes it easier for it to be able to move. Okay, so I'm still smearing out the inside so that it stays really super together in that kiln when we fire it. Okay, and I'm ready to add more coils. So I scratch. And here's my other coil from earlier. Gonna kind of detach it. You can see that that scratching still works though because it's kind of hard to get apart. I still have some scratches on this one. So I'm gonna put some water, attach the ends, twist, scratch some more. This one already has some scratches on both sides because I used it earlier. More scratching. can never scratch to attach too much. It's very important if you want to be hand building stuff with clay. Okay, reached about the end, and I'm getting pretty tall. So really, I think I'll maybe just need one more coil, which is exciting. Okay, keep going. Perfect. Again, I'm going to smooth it out, because as you get building, each coil stretches farther and farther and it gets taller and taller. So it's important to smooth it out. As soon as you start getting probably like 5 layers up, you might want to smooth it again, just so you can reach it. Turning it around so I can get every part of it. Because you can see as I was smoothing up, that popped up. That's what we want to avoid. So I'm really going to smooth that in to get that top layer really attached. And I'm supporting it with my hand so that I don't accidentally just cut a big hole in it. Sometimes that happens. And you can kind of see like my fork marks. So I might come in with some water, maybe the end of my fork, and like smooth it out and separate those coils from each other. You can also use the tip of your finger, whatever is more comfortable. So I want my Christmas tree to be smooth. So I'm going to try to smooth out all of those little scratch to attach marks that start appearing. Okay, one more coil to roll. So I'm going to grab another hunk off of my clay. Start rolling it into that thick tube. I'm rolling the coil with my fingers, not my hand. Spreading them super wide out. And pushing forward and back. And paying attention to how much pressure I'm pushing into it and how skinny it's getting in certain areas, trying to make it really even and really equal to these ones. Okay, so this is getting pretty good. It's about the seam size. So again, say it with me, scratch to attach. I'm gonna scratch this layer, scratch this layer. Really speedy, quick for the video, but you're gonna do so much better than me. Put some water. Put some water. Bring it closer to me so I can work better. And wrap this coil around. It's a little bit wet, so it's kind of slipping apart, but that's okay. Making sure that my scratched end is the one attaching to my other scratched end. Who would have guessed it? Okay, I'm going to scratch the top. And bring this piece over, wrapping around, scratch the top again, put some water, wrapping around. Oh, still need to scratch some more. It's getting really close to that top. some more water on there. Wrap it around, wrap it around. Super close. Still need to scratch. Wrap it around. And then you'll get to the top. Just a bit more scratching. And before I close it off, actually, I'm gonna do just a little bit more smoothing. Can't even really see because the top part is so closed off now. I'm just gonna kind of smooth those together as much as I can. And then I'm gonna close off the top. Okay, so when your tree is all built, it'll look something like this. It might be short, it might be taller, it might be wide, it might be skinnier. It can be whatever you want it to be, but it'll look plain. Look something like this. And I'm just smoothing out all those fork marks because I don't want them to show up later. Okay, so the next step, I'm gonna take another hunk of your clay. If you have like a rolling pin at home, you could use that, but you can also just use your hands. So I'm gonna kind of squish my clay down a little bit, and depending on which star you want to use, I think I'm gonna use the smaller one. But if I have a big one and a small one in there, or you can free cut your own. But I know stars are kind of tricky, so we gave you some templates. But I'm just kind of squishing a little hunk of clay down. You don't want it to be super thick, you don't want it to be super, super thin either, because you still want it to be able to hold its shape. But that's wide enough for the small one. So I'm going to put my small star on top of my little hunk of clay. Scoot this out of the way so that you can see it. And then I'm going to take my popsicle stick and I'm going to cut around my star template. Cutting all the way around, being pretty careful so I don't accidentally cut into it, because I still want it to keep that nice shape. And you don't have to make a star either. You could make an angel, you can make anything you wanted for your tree topper. But we're giving you the star because it's kind of traditional. So you can get as creative as you want with it. Now I'm just kind of smoothing out those edges. And then I'm gonna scratch up on the top again, up here. Scratch, and I'm gonna choose the little middle edge. Scratching there too. And I'm gonna put my star, put some water, and put my star on top. I'm gonna kind of smooth it together as well. Let's just smooth out the edges as much as I want to. So that's how you do the star. And then for all the little ornaments, you can again make these any shape that you want, but we made a bunch of little just round balls. And all you do is you kind of roll it. You can also roll them on the table. You get them whatever shape that you want. So I'm going to roll a couple. And they can be big or small. You could make any shape. So I'm just going to roll a couple little balls. Then I'm going to choose where I want them. So again, I'm attaching two pieces of clay. So I have to scratch this side and scratch one side of my ornament. Use some water and stick it onto your tree. And that is how you do it. So I'm gonna keep working on this guy a little bit. And I'm gonna scratch here, some water, and stick it on my coils. After you have gotten your tree all decorated just the way that you want it, you're then going to take the underglazes that we got you. We gave you a couple different colors, and you're going to choose how your tree is going to look. We did give you a green one in there, and you are free to glaze your tree green, or on your little piece of paper, you can tell us that you want us to glaze it green, and we can glaze your tree green after we've fired it with one of our big buckets of glaze here. Or if you want it to be this color green, you can do that too. This one's one of the big buckets, and we have lots of beautiful greens. So you can tell us if you want us to do the green part. So you'll take whatever color underglaze you want, and I'm gonna choose red for this little ornament over here. And you're going to apply the underglaze, if you choose underglaze, wherever underglaze touches your Christmas tree. You have to apply it pretty thick, because when we put the clear over it, sometimes if you don't put enough layers or if it's not thick enough, it'll get streaky, and you don't want it to be streaky, unless you do. It can be however you want. So I'm just thickly applying underglaze to my ornaments, and pretend that there's a bunch of beautiful ornaments on there. But for the video, I just have these two guys. And you can make them however you want. If you want to get super detailed and put little snowflakes or something on them, you can do that. If you want to just keep them a color, that's okay too. So then my star, I believe I want my star to be yellow. So I'm going to take my yellow out, rinse out my brush, get this yellow underglaze, and start painting my star. And I will say, especially the lighter colors, you really want to make sure that you don't get it streaky. You want it to be a really thick layer, because it tends to want to spread out. So you might even let it dry and do another layer. But that's how you work with the underglaze. So you just have to remember to get it nice and thick so that it will be a solid color like you probably want it to be. Okay, so that is how you make this beautiful Coil Christmas tree project. I hope you have a really fun time making it. Coils can be tricky. Just remember, keep your fingers spread out and roll it forward. Don't just keep it like this. And just have fun. It's a fun little project to do, and you'll end up with a beautiful Christmas tree at the end.